It was a cold and quiet night on Earth. The wind moved through the trees like whispers from forgotten stars. Inside a small cabin near the mountains, a man named John sat alone. He was a former soldier, a man who had seen too many battles and lost too many friends. Now he lived in silence, repairing machines and keeping to himself. He thought his days of war and fear were over. But that night, everything changed. A strange beeping sound came from his door monitor. It was an old military sensor he had built from scrap. It only activated when something non-human approached. John frowned and looked at the screen. For a second, he thought it was broken. Then he saw her. A tall figure stood outside his door, glowing faintly under the moonlight. Armor of silver and black reflected the cold air. Her eyes burned like stars, sharp and alive. John froze. He had seen that face before. He had seen it on Galactic wanted posters. It was Queen Sereth, ruler of the Zarkath Empire, the most feared alien species in the known galaxy. She was responsible for the destruction of whole worlds. Entire fleets had fallen under her command, and now she was standing at his door. For a long moment, John did not move. His heartbeat echoed louder than the wind. He reached for his blaster, but stopped halfway. Something about her posture was wrong. She did not stand like a conqueror. She looked weak, tired, almost broken. Then she spoke. Human. Her voice trembled, quiet but full of power. I need your help. John stared at her, not sure if he was dreaming. The Queen of the Galaxy asking him for help. Why should I help you? He said quietly. Her eyes softened, and for the first time he saw fear in them. They will find me soon, she said, and when they do, your world will burn with me. John stepped back, unsure if it was a threat or a warning, but something in her voice sounded human. He opened the door slowly, his weapon still aimed. She stepped inside, her armor flickering with fading energy. When the door closed behind her, the cabin seemed smaller. She looked around like someone seeing a home for the first time. Then she collapsed. John caught her before she hit the floor. Her body was cold and heavy. Up close, he saw the cracks in her armor and the faint blue blood seeping through. She was wounded. He laid her on a couch and scanned her with his med tool. The readings made no sense. Human and alien DNA mixed together. John shook his head. What are you? He whispered. Her eyes opened slightly, and she answered, something I was never meant to be. Outside, the night grew darker. Distant thunder rolled across the mountains. John felt the familiar pressure of danger, a soldier's instinct. He moved to the window and saw lights in the sky. 3 ships, silent and black, gliding low over the forest. They were scanning for life forms. They were hunting her. John cursed under his breath. He had hidden from the galaxy for years. Now it had come knocking on his door. He looked back at the Queen, her breathing shallow but steady. If he helped her, he might doom himself and everyone on Earth. If he left her, the hunters would destroy everything anyway. He remembered the faces of his old crew. He remembered the oath he had once sworn, to protect life, no matter where it came from. He moved quickly, pulling open a panel on the floor. Beneath, it was an old hidden passage leading to an underground hangar. Inside rested his ship, the Resolute, dusty but ready. He activated the Engine's warm-up sequence. The cabin lights flickered as power flowed through ancient circuits. John lifted the Queen into his arms and carried her down the steps. She was lighter than he expected. Her fingers clutched weakly at his jacket. Why are you helping me? She asked softly. Because you came to my door, he replied, and I think the galaxy sent you for a reason. When they reached the hangar, alarms began to blare. The hunter ships had locked onto their location. John placed her gently in the co-pilot's seat. Her eyes flickered open again, faint light glowing from the cyber marks on her neck. Do you know how to fly this? He asked. She managed a small smile. I commanded fleets across the stars, human. I can fly. The engines roared to life, shaking the underground walls. Dust rained from the ceiling as the Resolute rose from its cradle. Outside, beams of light cut through the forest as the hunter ships closed in. Missiles streaked through the clouds, but John pulled hard on the throttle. The ship blasted upward, tearing through smoke and thunder. For a heartbeat, the world disappeared beneath them. Only stars and silence remained. John looked at the Queen beside him. Her eyes were fixed on the stars, shining with both pain and hope. "Where to now?" he asked. She turned to him, and her voice was calm but filled with sorrow. "To the truth," she said, "before the galaxy burns." The words echoed through the cockpit. John realized that whatever secret she carried, it was something far greater than war, something that could change everything humanity believed. And as the stars stretched into lines and the Resolute jumped into hyperspace, John knew his quiet life was over. He had opened the door to the galaxy's most feared queen, and in that moment, his destiny began. The ship drifted through the cold sea of stars. John sat at the controls, his hands steady, but his mind racing. He had just escaped Earth with the most dangerous being in the galaxy. Every second felt like a countdown to something he didn't understand. Queen Sereth sat beside him, pale and weak, her eyes staring out at the endless void. Her armor was cracked, and her breathing came slow and heavy. John wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but he kept quiet. The silence between them was heavier than the weight of space itself. Finally, he broke it. "Why were they hunting you?" he asked. The Queen's eyes glowed faintly, the light flickering like dying embers. "I was their ruler," she said softly, "but I broke their most sacred law." John frowned. What law could a queen break? Her gaze turned toward him, cold and filled with regret. The law that says no ruler shall love their enemy. John didn't understand, not yet. He checked the sensors and saw multiple red dots following their trail. 3 bounty ships were closing in fast. "They're tracking us," he said. "How do they know where we are?" The Queen leaned closer, tapping her wrist unit. Her voice dropped to a whisper, "Because I'm still linked to the royal fleet." Her tone darkened. "They can find me anywhere." John's fingers flew across the console, cutting power to the comms. The stars outside dimmed as the ship powered down into stealth mode. For a moment, they floated in total darkness, hidden between asteroids. Only the faint blue glow from her eyes remained, lighting the cockpit like ghost fire. "You said you broke their law," John whispered again. "Why come to me?" She looked at him, and her voice trembled. "Because you once showed mercy when no one else did." John remembered the Battle of Vega Prime. He had commanded the last human ship that stood against her fleet. He could have destroyed them, but he let them retreat. That decision had haunted him for years. Now he realized it had changed more than just the war. It had changed her. The Queen looked away, her voice barely a whisper. "My people called me weak for sparing humanity," she said. "They took my throne, my armies, everything." John stared at her, stunned. "You spared us." She nodded slowly. "And now they want me erased from existence." Outside the window, the bounty ships grew closer. A soft hum shook the Resolute as the first energy scans brushed across the hull. John activated the manual control thrusters and guided the ship deeper into the asteroid field. Rocks tumbled around them, glowing faintly as sunlight hit their frozen surfaces. One wrong move could mean death. But John moved like a man who had flown through hell before. The Queen watched him closely, her expression unreadable. "You still fight like a soldier," she said quietly. He gave a half-smile. "And you still command like a queen." For the first time, a faint smile touched her lips. It vanished as quickly as it came, replaced by tension. "Their scanners will break through soon," she said. "We can't hide forever." John nodded, his eyes narrowing. "Then we don't hide," he said. "We make them chase us." He slammed a switch, and the Resolute came alive again, engines roaring like thunder. The stealth field broke, and bright light filled the cockpit. The nearest bounty ship locked on and fired. Beams of plasma tore past them, lighting up the asteroid belt. John twisted the ship hard to the left, the hull groaning from the pressure. He fired back, 2 missiles streaking into the darkness. Both found their targets. 2 ships vanished in fire. But one remained. It fired a pulse that struck the Resolute, shaking the entire cabin. Alarms screamed, and sparks flew from the control panel. John fought to keep the ship steady. The Queen stood, her eyes burning bright now. She placed her hand on the ship's interface, and strange alien symbols flared to life. "What are you doing?" John shouted. "Saving us," she replied, her voice echoing like thunder. The ship's systems responded to her touch, faster than human technology should. The engines roared with new power. She guided the ship through the asteroid belt with impossible precision. John could only stare as she moved like she was part of the machine. In a flash of light, they burst free of the asteroid field, leaving the last hunter behind. Silence filled the ship again, broken only by the hum of the engines. John looked at her in awe. "What did you do?" Her voice was calm but tired. "Your ship carries technology from the First War." She touched the console gently. "Humanity created something far more dangerous than it ever understood." Her tone darkened. "That is why I came, to stop what your kind built before it destroys everything." John felt a chill crawl down his spine. He had thought humanity was the victim, but now maybe they were the threat. He turned toward her. "What are you talking about?" The Queen looked away, her eyes glimmering like distant stars. "There is a weapon hidden beyond Saturn's moon," she whispered, "and if it wakes, not even the gods will survive." The words hung in the air like a curse. John felt his heart pounding. He had opened his door to save a life. Now he realized he might have invited the end of the galaxy. The Queen's voice softened, filled with sorrow. "You asked why I came to you," she said. "Now you know, because the end began on Earth." Outside, the stars seemed colder. The war John thought he had escaped was only beginning. And beside him sat the only being who might save, or doom, them all. The Resolute drifted through a narrow corridor of shattered moons. The silence of space was broken only by the low hum of its damaged engines. John sat at the controls, eyes fixed on the sensors. Every few seconds, the radar blinked red. Enemies closing in. The Queen sat behind him, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Her body was still weak, but her voice carried command. "They've traced us again," she said quietly. "They will not stop until I am dead." John turned his head slightly, his voice calm but sharp. "Then we make sure they don't find us alive." The Queen gave a faint smile. "You humans are still as reckless as I remember." "Reckless kept us alive," he said, gripping the controls tighter. Outside the ship, 3 crimson lights appeared. Bounty cruisers sleek and deadly. Each one was armed with plasma cannons and hunter drones. They were closing the gap fast. John muttered under his breath, "They must have locked on to your royal signature again." The Queen nodded. "The Zarkath used my genetic code as a beacon." Her tone darkened. "Even in exile, I am still their prisoner." John's mind raced. He couldn't outgun them, not in open space. But he could outthink them. He switched off the main thrusters and rerouted power to the gravity drive. The ship dropped suddenly, sinking into the rings of a nearby gas giant. A storm of dust and lightning swallowed them whole. Inside, the cabin shook violently, sparks jumping from the ceiling. The Queen grabbed the railing. "Are you trying to kill us?" "Just trying to make us invisible," he replied, his voice steady but tense. Lightning bolts danced across the hull as the ship entered the planet's thick atmosphere. Sensor interference grew. The bounty ships lost visual contact. John exhaled slowly. "They'll think we burned up," he said. "For now," she replied, "but they'll come again." He looked at her, trying to read the expression on her alien face. "What are you not telling me?" he asked. Her eyes flickered, a storm of emotion hidden behind them. "There's something inside me," she said softly, "something they want, something they created." John frowned. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, her fingers trembling. "They experimented on me. Long before I became their queen," she whispered. "They called it Project Genesis." John's heart tightened. He had heard that name before, in classified human war reports. It was said to be a lost bioengineering experiment designed to merge species into perfect hybrids. Project Genesis was human, he said slowly. The queen looked at him sharply. Yes, she said, and your people shared it with mine. The air inside the cabin seemed colder. John realized this wasn't just an alien rebellion. It was a secret that both sides had buried. Humanity and the Zarkaf had once worked together. And this woman, this so-called enemy queen, was their greatest creation. Before he could ask more, the radar screamed. One of the bounty ships had found their trail again. "Ow," he shouted. The queen's expression hardened. "They're using a pulse tracker. It follows my heartbeat." John slammed a switch. "Then stop your heart." Her eyes widened. "Are you insane?" He looked back at her, his face deadly serious. "Do you trust me?" There was a long silence. Then, slowly, she nodded. John ran to the med bay and pulled out an emergency stasis injector. "This will slow your pulse to near zero," he said. "They'll think you're dead." She took the device and pressed it to her neck without hesitation. Her body tensed, her breath fading. Her silver eyes dimmed to gray. For a moment, she looked almost human. John carried her back to the cockpit and placed her in the cryo seat. "Hang on, Queen," he whispered. "I'll get us out." The bounty ship appeared again, its weapons charging. John pushed the engines to full power and dove deeper into the planet storm. Winds roared like beasts as lightning split the sky. The Resolute spun through chaos, alarms screaming, hull cracking. John gritted his teeth, guiding the ship by instinct alone. The bounty ship fired, beams of plasma tearing through the clouds. But in the blinding storm, its systems glitched. A bolt of lightning struck its reactor. In an instant, the enemy ship exploded, swallowed by the gas storm below. Silence returned. Only the hum of the engines and the faint sound of rain against metal remained. John sat back, drenched in sweat. He looked at the queen, still frozen, still silent. He tapped her shoulder gently. "You can wake up now?" Her eyes flickered open, glowing once more. "You did it," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "You can thank the storm." But deep down, John felt unease. If her heart could be tracked, then others could find them too. And if she truly carried something inside her, something both alien and human, then the galaxy's interest in her wasn't just political. It was personal, it was biological, it was dangerous. As the ship rose above the clouds, sunlight spilled across the cockpit. The queen stared out at the stars, her voice low. "They won't stop," she said. "Not until the child is gone." John froze. "Child?" She turned to him, her expression calm but filled with pain. "Yes," she whispered. "The last thing Project Genesis created wasn't me. It was life." Her words cut through him like fire. He realized then that she wasn't just running from her empire. She was running to protect something that could change the fate of every species in the galaxy. John looked out at the stars, his jaw set. "If they want her," he said quietly, "they'll have to go through me first." The queen's gaze softened. For the first time, she smiled. Not as a ruler, but as someone who believed in hope. And somewhere, far beyond the edge of known space, the storm of destiny was only beginning. The Resolute drifted in the shadow of Saturn's rings, silent as a ghost. John stood at the observation deck, staring at the glowing storm band below. He felt the weight of everything pressing on his chest. The pursuit, the queen, the strange truth she carried. Somewhere in the darkness beyond those rings lay the secret she had spoken of. A weapon built not to defend, but to erase. The queen walked slowly into the control room, her silver eyes calmer now, but heavy with sorrow. "You've been quiet," she said softly. John turned to her. "Because I'm trying to decide if I'm saving the galaxy or helping you end it." Her expression didn't change, but her voice carried pain. "If I wanted to end the galaxy, I would have stayed there, Queen," she said. Her words echoed through the cold air like truth carved from metal. John moved closer to the map display. "Tell me what's hidden here," he demanded. She hesitated, then placed her hand on the console. Holograms flickered, ancient blueprints, coordinates, fragments of code older than both their species. "This is Project Genesis' final vault," she said. "Humanity buried it after the First War. It holds a weapon made from the DNA of every intelligent race that fought in that war." John's heart skipped. "What kind of weapon?" Her eyes darkened. "One that rewrites life itself." Silence filled the cabin. John felt the air grow heavier. Something about her tone sent a chill through his spine. "You mean biological extinction," he said slowly. She nodded. "If activated, it could reset evolution, erase everything and start over." John clenched his fists. "Then why bring me here?" Her voice trembled. "Because humans created it, and only a human can shut it down." The words hit him harder than any weapon. He stared at her, trying to find anger, but found only fear. "You're telling me humanity built something that could destroy every living thing?" She looked down, her metallic fingers trembling. "It was your species' answer to defeat," she whispered, "a failsafe for pride." Outside, a sudden flash of light broke through the black sky. John turned sharply. The sensor screamed. 3 massive ships had exited warp behind Saturn's rings. Each one bore the mark of the Zarkath royal fleet. "They found us," he said. The Queen's face turned pale. "They're not here for me," she said, her voice hollow. "They're here for the weapon." Alarms rang through the ship. John rushed to the controls, powering the engines. But the Queen stayed still, her gaze locked on the approaching ships. "I can hold them back," she said quietly. John looked at her in disbelief. "You're in no condition to fight." Her eyes glowed brighter, burning like twin suns. "You don't understand, John," she said. "The weapon is connected to me. I am its living key." His stomach dropped. "What?" he whispered. She took a step closer, her voice filled with sorrow. "When the scientists of both worlds failed to control Genesis, they built it into something living, me. I thought I escaped it, but it's always been inside me. If I die, the weapon awakens." John stared at her, speechless. Outside, the enemy ships began to deploy fighters, swarming like insects. He slammed his hand on the control panel. "Then we protect you," he said, "and we end this together." She shook her head slowly. "You don't understand. If they capture me alive, they will use me to trigger it." Her voice lowered to a whisper. "I cannot allow that." Before he could answer, an explosion ripped through the side of the Resolute. The ship spun violently, alarms blaring, metal screaming. John was thrown against the wall, sparks flying past his face. Through the viewport, he saw the enemy boarding pods latch onto the hull. "They're coming," he shouted. The Queen stood tall, her silver armor reassembling across her body. Her voice was calm, powerful, terrifying. "Then let them come," she said. The corridor lights flickered red as the first wave of soldiers breached the airlock. John grabbed his pulse rifle, firing as they stormed in. Blue plasma tore through the air, cutting through metal and armor. The Queen moved like a storm, her hands glowing, energy arcing from her fingertips. She tore through the enemy ranks with speed that defied gravity. Every movement was elegant and deadly. She wasn't fighting for power. She was fighting for something far deeper. The last of the soldiers fell, smoke filling the narrow hallway. John's arm bled, his breathing ragged. He looked at her, the once feared Queen, now standing in firelight. "You're not what I expected," he said softly. She turned to him, her voice quiet but sharp. "Neither are you human." Suddenly, the ship's AI crackled to life. "Warning! Vault signal detected below Titan's surface." John looked at her. "That's it. The weapon." The Queen nodded. "Yes," she whispered, "and it's waking up." A deep vibration shook the hull. Outside, Titan's surface began to glow, bright cracks spreading across its icy crust. Lightning erupted from the planet like veins of fire. The Queen grabbed John's arm, her voice urgent. "If we don't shut it down now, everything ends." John stared into her glowing eyes. "Then let's finish what your empire started," he said. The ship dove toward Titan, Flames and lightning engulfed the sky. And as they descended into the storm, John realized the truth. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a war for the future of life itself. The Resolute pierced through Titan's orange clouds, descending into fire and thunder. Lightning flashed across the ship's hull, and dust storms raged like angry spirits. John held the controls tight, every muscle tense. Below them, the planet's crust glowed with strange blue veins, pulsing like a heartbeat. The Queen stood behind him, silent, her expression unreadable. She could feel it, the weapon's call, echoing through her very blood. "This place is alive," John whispered. The Queen nodded slowly. "It's not a planet anymore," she said. "It's a machine." Those words chilled him. He stared at the readings. Titan's magnetic field was shifting, energy levels climbing beyond logic. Whatever was buried beneath that ice was awakening. They landed near a ridge of crystal spires, each humming with alien light. The ground trembled with every step they took. John grabbed his rifle and scanned the area. But before they could move further, a voice crackled through the comms. "John Hale, this is Captain Reeve of the Earth Defense Command." John froze. He hadn't heard that voice in years. Reeve, his old commander, the man who once saved his life, and the man who had betrayed humanity's first peace treaty. "Reeve," John muttered. The voice continued, calm and cold. "Stand down, soldier, we have the situation under control." John's heart sank. He turned to the Queen. "They're here." Moments later, the horizon filled with light. Human warships cutting through the clouds. Dozens of them, massive and armed. Earth's fleet had arrived. The Queen's face darkened. "They want the weapon," she said. John shook his head. "No, they came for you." Before he could say more, a blinding flash filled the sky. A beam of energy struck the ground nearby, blasting the ridge apart. John and the Queen were thrown backward, crashing into the dirt. Over the roar of thunder, Reeve's voice echoed again. "John Hale, surrender the alien and the site will not be destroyed." John coughed, dust and smoke filling his lungs. He looked at the Queen, her armor cracked, her breathing shallow. She whispered, "He'll never stop." John pulled her up. "Neither will I." Above them, Earth's dropships began descending, troops spilling out like shadows. John ran toward the old tunnel entrance the Queen had shown him. They slipped inside as explosions shook the surface. Inside, the tunnel walls pulsed with blue light. Veins of alien energy twisted around them, guiding them deeper underground. As they reached the vault chamber, John stopped in awe. Before them stood a massive sphere suspended in midair. It shimmered with shifting colors, light moving like liquid metal. "This," the Queen said, her voice trembling, "is the heart of Genesis." John could feel its energy, alive, aware, watching them. The Queen stepped closer, her hand reaching out. But before she could touch it, a sharp voice echoed behind them. "Step away from the weapon." John spun around. Reeve stood there, surrounded by soldiers in black armor. His expression was hard, but there was something hungry in his eyes. "John," he said, "you've done enough. You brought us right to it." John's stomach turned. "You're not here to destroy it, are you?" Reeve smirked. "Destroy it? No, we're here to control it." The Queen's eyes flared. "You can't control this power. It will consume everything." Reeve pointed his weapon at her. "You would say that," he said coldly. "You're afraid of losing your reign." John stepped between them. "Reeve, listen to me. You're making a mistake." Reeve shook his head. The only mistake was letting aliens live. He turned to his men. "Take her alive." Soldiers moved forward. John fired first. Blue plasma tore through the chamber, hitting armor and stone. The Queen unleashed a wave of energy that sent the troops flying. Reeve dug behind cover, shouting, "Hale, stand down!" But John didn't stop. The ground shook violently as the Genesis core began to react. Lights spiraled, and a low hum grew louder, deeper, more alive. The Queen staggered, clutching her chest. Energy poured from her body like smoke, drawn toward the sphere. John caught her before she fell. Her voice was weak, barely a whisper. "It's calling me," she said. "It's waking up through me." Reeve looked up from the floor, his face pale now. "What's happening?" he shouted. John glared at him. "You just doomed us all." The walls cracked as blinding light filled the chamber. The Genesis core pulsed like a living sun. Energy waves rippled outward, disintegrating machines, melting weapons. The Queen looked up, her eyes full of tears and fire. "I can stop it," she said, "but only if I link myself to it completely." John shook his head. "You'll die." She smiled faintly. "Better me than everything." Before he could stop her, she tore the crown from her armor and pressed it against the sphere. A surge of light exploded around her. Her scream echoed through the chamber, not of pain, but release. The Genesis core dimmed, shrinking to a faint glow. The tremors stopped, and for a brief moment, the universe held its breath. Reeve lay unconscious, the soldiers gone. John knelt beside the Queen, her breathing shallow. He took her hand, her skin cold as ice. "You saved them," he whispered. Her lips trembled into a small smile. "Not yet," she said. "There's one more truth you must know." Her hand touched his chest, and a faint light passed between them. In that instant, John saw a memory, a laboratory, a cryochamber, a small child sleeping inside. Half human, half Zarkath. "She lives," the Queen whispered. "Our daughter, the last Genesis." Her eyes closed, the light fading. And as John held her lifeless body in his arms, he realized the war wasn't over. It had only changed form, because somewhere out there, in the ruins of two dying empires, a child carried the power to shape the stars. The chambers still glowed with the dying light of Genesis. John knelt beside the Queen's still body, her hand cold in his. Outside, Titan's storm howled like a mourning god. The air shimmered with strange energy, the remnants of what she had awakened. John's mind burned with her final words. "Our daughter, the last Genesis." He looked up at the glowing sphere, now pulsing weakly in the air. Every heartbeat seemed to echo through the ruins. The weapon wasn't dead, only sleeping, and somewhere deep inside it, he could feel her presence, faint but alive. He pressed his palm against the sphere. "You said you wouldn't leave me," he whispered. For a moment, the light flared, and her voice echoed faintly. "I never did." Suddenly, the ship's AI came online, its voice distorted. "Warning, Titan's core instability detected. Planetary collapse in 12 minutes. John's eyes widened. He grabbed the Queen's crown from the floor and ran toward the exit. But before he could reach the ramp, a familiar voice spoke from behind him. "Going somewhere, old friend?" Reeve stood there, half his armor melted, one eye glowing red with cybernetic fire. He was alive, twisted by the Genesis blast. His voice was filled with rage and something worse. Hunger. "You think you can just walk away with her power?" Reeve growled. John aimed his rifle. "This ends now." Reeve laughed. "You're right. It does for you." In an instant, Reeve moved faster than human. He slammed into John, throwing him against the wall. Metal cracked. Pain surged through his ribs. Reeve's body pulsed with blue veins of Genesis energy. "She gave me a gift," he said, his grin feral. "The weapon bonded with me too." John coughed blood, glaring at him. "You don't even know what it is." Reeve smirked. "I don't need to. I just need to use it." The ground shook violently. Energy surged through the chamber. The sphere brightened, responding to Reeve's corrupted aura. John realized what was happening. Reeve was becoming the new conduit. "If you link with it, you'll wipe out everything," John shouted. Reeve's eyes blazed. "Then I'll be a god." John dove for his weapon, rolling behind a fallen pillar. Reeve unleashed a shockwave, vaporizing metal and stone. The walls screamed as energy arcs tore through the chamber. John aimed and fired, plasma bolts slamming into Reeve's chest. The impact barely slowed him. Reeve laughed. Humanity's greatest soldier, still clinging to old toys. He raised his hand. launching a blast that shattered the ground beneath John. John fell, catching himself on a broken support beam. His body burned, but his mind stayed sharp. He saw the queen's crown, still glowing faintly near the core. He crawled toward it as Reeve charged another blast. In one swift motion, John grabbed the crown and pressed it to his wrist console. The device connected instantly, her voice whispering in his head. John listened. Her presence flooded his mind. Memories, feelings, and power, all merging into him. The crown wasn't just a symbol, it was an interface, a link to the weapon's heart. John stood, eyes now glowing with faint silver light. Reeve froze. What have you done? John's voice echoed with layered tones, his and hers combined. I'm finishing what she started. They charged at each other, light and shadow colliding. Every strike sent waves of energy across the chamber. John fought not just with strength, but with the queen's precision and control. He felt her guiding him, her memories flowing through every motion. Reeve roared, unleashing a surge that tore open the ceiling. Lightning and dust poured in. John seized the moment, channeling the energy through his arm. He shouted, "For her," and struck. The explosion consumed everything. When the light faded, John stood alone. Reeve lay motionless, his body cracked like glass. The sphere dimmed once more, its pulse slowing. John fell to his knees, exhausted. His voice trembled. It's over. But the AI spoke again, its tone colder than before. Genesis transfer complete. John's head snapped up. On the console, a new signal blinked. A life signature, small but clear. It wasn't the queen. It wasn't Reeve. It was the child. And she was waking up. Outside, the planet began to tear itself apart. Firestorms erupted across the surface. John staggered to his feet and carried Reeve's body toward the ship. The Resolute's engines roared as it lifted off, breaking through collapsing clouds. Behind them, Titan exploded in a storm of light. The Genesis core vanished into the chaos, buried forever. As the ship drifted into space, John looked out at the stars. He touched the glowing mark on his wrist where the crown had merged with his skin. Her voice echoed faintly inside him, soft and eternal. The cycle isn't over, John. It never ends. It only changes. He whispered, then I'll make sure it changes for the better. In the distance, a faint beacon pulsed, a small ship escaping the ruins of Titan. The signal carried one word, encrypted and ancient. Daughter. John stared at it for a long time. Hope and fear mixed within him like twin fires. He didn't know if she was friend or danger, only that she was the future. And somewhere out there, among the endless stars, the legacy of the queen and the birth of a new empire had already begun. The stars stretched endlessly before him, cold and eternal. John sat alone on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the slow pulse of distant galaxies. The echoes of war had faded, but the silence left behind was heavier than any battlefield. He had lost everything, his home, his crew, and the woman who had changed his soul. Yet somewhere out there, in the quiet void, her legacy still lived. The faint beacon still blinked on the screen, a small ship drifting far beyond Titan's debris field. Its signal was weak, encrypted with alien and human code woven together. John had decoded only one word from it, daughter. He couldn't erase it from his mind. If she was alive, then she carried the blood of two species, and the key to everything left behind. He leaned back in his chair, the hum of the engines a lonely heartbeat. Computer, he said quietly, track the signal. The AI's voice responded softly. Signal trajectory leads beyond the edge of the Orion belt. John's eyes narrowed. That's uncharted space. Correct, the AI said. No known colonies or fleets operate there. John smiled faintly. Then that's where she'd go. The ship turned, stars stretching into long lines as hyperspace opened around him. The journey was silent, filled with ghosts of memories. He saw flashes of her, the queen standing in firelight, her eyes full of sorrow and pride. Her final words still haunted him. Protect her, our child. Days passed, though time meant little in the endless dark. John repaired the ship piece by piece, each weld a small act of defiance. He spoke less, thought more, and every night, before sleep, he'd look at the Queen's crown, still fused into his wrist, glowing faintly. Her voice would sometimes whisper in his dreams. Not words, just a feeling, a pulse like a heartbeat guiding him forward. Then one day, the AI broke the silence. Captain Hale, the signal is changing. John looked up sharply. How? It's increasing in strength. The source is moving toward us. John's pulse quickened. Put on screen. The stars rippled as a small vessel appeared from the black. It was unlike anything he had seen, organic metal, grown instead of built. Its surface shimmered with light that pulsed in rhythm with his wrist. The ship was alive. A transmission crackled through, soft and strange. A young voice spoke, gentle yet filled with power. Human vessel, do not be afraid. John froze. He knew that voice. Not exactly, but in its tone, its echo, its calm strength. Identify yourself, he said carefully. The voice paused, then replied. I am Lyra, it said, child of Sereth and of John Hale. John's chest tightened. His throat fell dry. It couldn't be. But as the smaller ship came closer, he saw her through the viewport. A girl no older than 12, with silver eyes and human skin. Her hair shimmered like starlight, and her presence radiated quiet power. When her vessel docked, John stood by the airlock, his weapon lowered. The door opened, and she stepped through. Her steps were light, graceful, neither human nor alien, but something beyond. She looked up at him, her gaze steady. You came for me, she said simply. He nodded, unable to find words. She smiled faintly. Mother said you would. For a long time, neither spoke. The air between them was filled with everything unspoken. Grief, wonder, fear, hope. Finally, John asked, how did you survive? Lyra's eyes glowed softly. Mother's essence shielded me, she said. She gave her life to protect mine, but her spirit still lives inside the stars. John looked out at the galaxy, his heart heavy and full. She always said she'd never leave, he murmured. Lyra turned toward the viewport, her expression calm. The empires are collapsing, she said. The Zarkath are leaderless, and the humans are divided. Her voice grew quieter, deeper. The galaxy is lost, but it can be reborn. John frowned. Reborn how? She turned back to him, and for a moment, her eyes shone brighter than any star. Through unity, she said. Through us. John felt a strange warmth pulse through the mark on his wrist. The crown's light matched hers perfectly. He understood then. She wasn't just his daughter. She was the living bridge between species, the last hope for peace. But peace had enemies, and he knew the galaxy would never let her live freely. Lyra, he said quietly, they'll come for you. She nodded, I know. Then we need to be ready, he said. Her small hand reached out and touched his wrist. We will be, she whispered, together. Outside the window, the stars shifted, dozens of new signals lighting up the void. Ships from forgotten factions, rogue empires, and surviving fleets. They were all converging, drawn by something, perhaps the energy that now radiated from her. John stared at the incoming radar blips and smiled grimly. It begins again, he said. Lyra looked at him, calm and fearless. No, she said softly. It ends differently this time. The Resolute turned toward the approaching fleet, engines glowing like dawn. And for the first time since the war began, John felt something stronger than fear. He felt destiny. The galaxy's fate no longer rested in the hands of empires or armies. It rested in the heart of a child, half human, half alien, the daughter of the queen who had defied the stars, and a soldier who chose compassion over destruction. As the ship vanished into the light, her voice echoed once more. The old worlds will fall, she said, but from their ashes, humanity will rise again. Not alone, but united. And in that boundless silence of space, the legend of the alien queen lived on, not as a tale of war or fear, but as the first spark of a new beginning,